It's that time of the month again to be doing a TBR video. For me, after the super success of trying out Becca's BookoplAthon in July, I want to say, which was just the 48-hour version of it, and then her announcing that she was doing a month-long one for September, I knew what I wanted to do for my TBR for this month. So I ended up picking 5 rolls, since her rules say that if you roll doubles, then you would get extra books put on your list. And as I mentioned in my last TBR, I am technically still supposed to be trying to study for things like the GRE to get into a master's program for school, so I don't want to overload my reading too much. On the other hand, I didn't get any doubles when I rolled, so I did end up doubling up on a few of the prompts that I just had multiple books that I was interested in doing for them. So that's where we're at. But anyways, for my first roll, I got a chance card roll, and what I ended up doing with my chance cards is I used both chance cards that I got as a poll vote on Twitter, because I had really hoped that I was going to get the poll roll, and I did not. But everyone participating on Twitter pretty much said that it was okay to make my chance cards into a poll. And I mean, if you think about it, having people randomly decide my book is about as random as drawing out a random card. So it works for me. So the first chance card that was selected for me is the book The Girl from Nowhere, which I do not have a physical copy of. I've got it on my Kindle Unlimited. It's like a sci-fi story. The main character gets injured and is in a really wild and dangerous environment, and I don't know what the Girl from Nowhere part of the title has to do with it, because I have just barely started reading it. Even though it's not September yet, I've read just the littlest bit, and that's all I know from the story from what I've read. So I'm very curious to see how it goes from there and see what happens with it. So that's book number 1. Then for roll number 2, I ended up getting the ebook or audiobook option. So I always have a bunch of audiobooks right now, because that's part of what I do on my drives to and from work, and also at work I can listen to an audiobook while I'm working, as long as it's not detracting from the work, so I do that a lot too. So one of the books that I've picked up recently is Hunger, which is like a autobiography, I believe, about an eating disorder that the author had, and it sounded really fascinating and interesting, so that'll be one of my audiobooks that I'll make sure to get to either driving to and from work or while working for the next month in September. And then the next one that I've got is one of the ones that I ended up doubling up on. My next roll was for a middle grade book, and I love middle grade for one thing, and they tend to be a little bit shorter, and I had a couple just sitting around that I've been wanting to read for a while. So I have 2 that I've picked out for this one. The first one is called Wolf Wilder. This basic premise of this story is that the main character is a young girl who lives in Russia with her mom. And I don't know if this is historically accurate or just purely for the book, but in their society, the rich people keep pet wolves, and then if the wolves start to be too wild, and bite people or attack people or whatever, then they get sent to the wolf wilders, and they basically teach the wolves how to be wild again, and then send them out into the wild. And I've been a wolf lover since I was very small. So the concept of this book just sounds really fun to me, and I can't wait to see where the story takes me. So that's book number 1 for my middle grades that I've got. The second one that I've got is Wed Rabbit. I don't remember what the plot of this one is, so let's look at it real fast. I'll just read it to you. You're called Fidge, and you're nearly 11. You've been hurled into a strange world. You have 3 companions. 2 are unbelievably weird, and the 3rd is your awful cousin Graham. You have to solve a series of nearly impossible clues. You need to deal with a cruel dictator and 3,000 Wimbly woos. Yes, you read that sentence correctly. And the whole situation, the whole entire thing, is your fault. Wed Rabbit is an adventure story about friendship, danger, and the terror of never being able to get back home. So, I think this will be fun, just like reading from that. I already like the kind of comedic style that I think is coming out just from reading that sleeve in there. So this one should hopefully be a fun one. And again, pretty quick, pretty short read. So I don't mind having multiples on the middle grade for myself. Then we get to my next chance card pull vote that I wish I had the copy of with me. I've requested it from the library, but it did not come in time for this video. But that one is going to be All These Monsters. And All These Monsters is a book that I was actually looking at doing during one of the other readathons that I did. Maybe it was even the other Bookopoly one. I don't remember. The prompt for it might have been a Reading Rush one. I think it was a Reading Rush one, actually. Because the prompt for it was to pick a book with a cover that matched your birthstone. And All These Monsters has this really pretty, like, white-gray kind of cover. And my birthstone is a diamond, so it seemed like a perfect one. And it's actually been on hold since then, because it was one of the ones I was thinking about for that. But I'm now number 1 on the library list, so sometime in September I should be getting it, hopefully sooner rather than later, but that's one of the ones that I'm going to be reading for it as well. I'm mildly nervous about that one, which is part of why it was a chance card, because it's more of like a sci-fi story, maybe even a zombie one. I don't remember the description for sure, but a little bit out of my wheelhouse in that way, because I tend to read more fantasy / contemporary / biographies, so anything that's more sci-fi, and especially if it ends up being a zombie story, is not really stuff that I go for. So we'll see if I like it or not. But that's my other chance card roll that I did. And then the final roll that I ended up getting was to read a book with nature on the cover, which, being like a fantasy reader, you would think would be an easier thing to have figured out. But I feel like I'm faking it on these ones. I don't know if I really am or not. But the first one I've got for this is another audiobook option, The Astonishing Color of After. And as you can see, it's got a bird on it. So it's like, birds are nature, right? So that's this one. I've heard lots of good reviews from other booktubers on this one. I'm very excited about it. And I mean, here's like the first line of the description. Leigh Chen Saunders is absolutely certain about one thing. When her mother died by suicide, she turned into a bird. So, even just from the back cover, we've got some like nature representation stuff going on. Obviously, it sounds like there's a few trigger warnings because we've got like suicide going on in here. Looking a little bit further into the description, we do have some Asian representation because Leigh is half Asian, half white. So it'll be an interesting adventure to read this one. I'm very curious about it, and I've heard great things about it. But the nature cover one is another one that I also doubled up on. The other one that I want to read for this is The Song of the Dryad, which is by another YouTuber. I've gone and forgotten her name because I'm a horrible person. I'll link her down below and the book down below. But she does a lot of like editing style videos on YouTube because she does the like editing as part of her job, and so that's really cool. And when I found out about her books, I was very excited. Her most recent one that she's working on, I think, is called Pistol Daisy, but Song of the Dryad sounded much more up my alley because it's a little bit of fantasy. The cover is really beautiful. It's got like a really blue cover and a deer with big antlers and stuff, and I'm very excited to read that one and support a fellow YouTuber and all that. I went and bought it on Kindle, so if I like it enough, I'll probably end up buying a physical copy too, but that's what I've got going for me so far. Based on the Bookopoly prompts, that's what I've got set up and going, and if it's anything like this month is gone, even though I tried to limit myself on my TBR this month, I'll probably still be reading a lot more than just those books anyways, so trying to limit myself, but ultimately knowing it probably won't happen. And then just one final thing to address. If you've watched other videos of mine, you probably know that I usually do a book club book. And this month I've been reading Where the Crawdads Sing with my book club, and I've done a few other books in the past, and I usually do like weekly videos on our book club progress with it and stuff. However, for September, I am not going to be doing that. My book club is still doing their book club thing, but they voted on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for their book for this month, and I kind of lost interest in reading the Harry Potter books around book 6. So I've never even technically finished reading the series, but I also just have no interest in revisiting Harry Potter, especially after recent comments that have been made by J.K. Rowling, and so I'm just not going to participate in my book club for next month. But that's okay. I'll have plenty of other books to read. I'll have plenty of things to do with trying to study for the GRE as well. So that's what my month's going to look like. Let me know down below if you've read any of the books that I'm going to be reading, if you're excited to see what I think of any of them, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. This is the Umlaut Harper signing out.